Hey everybody, Josh Sigurdson of World Alternative Media here, and it's hard to have patience and a good heart in the crypto world, is it not? And we can see the latest crypto markets right here. Bitcoin at 7,261, down dramatically from earlier today, but I mean, still up like more than 2.5 times since the beginning of the year. People freak out. It's a bear market, and there's a lot of market manipulation coming in from China, the U.S. government, elsewhere, Russia, etc. It's just crazy. But there's a hopeful story to be told here. But first, before I get into the hope and change and all that kind of stuff, let's get into this article out of Zero Hedge, which says, crypto suddenly panic bid. Bitcoin near 7,800, Ether tops $150. And as this article from today, by the way, from today, remember the price I just showed you, from today, it says catalysts as usual are unclear, but a sudden surge of buying has lifted cryptos across the board this morning, with Bitcoin testing 7,800. And you can see the calculations here and the charting here. Oh, man. This surge happens as Cointelegraph reports that Bitcoin futures open interest on a digital assets platform backed has hit a new all-time high. According to December 3rd Twitter post published on December 3rd by, they have to say December 3rd as many times as possible. It's a drinking game now. By Backed Volume Bot, a Twitter account dedicated to reporting backed trading volumes. Monday's open interest on backed Bitcoin futures reached a new all-time high of $6.5 million. In future markets, open interest is the number of open contracts in the market and is often used to indicate the health of the market. When there is a large amount of open interest, new or additional capital is flowing in. As it continues, the reported open interest is a 42% increase from the previous day, which was an all-time high as well. Last Friday and Saturday saw open interest records of $4.2 million and $4.3 million, respectively. The platform's trading volumes have been continuously breaking records since its launch in September. At the end of November, daily volumes on the platform hit a new all-time high of over $42.5 million, or 4,443 Bitcoin at the time. Also in November, Backed Chief Operating Officer Adam White announced the firm's move to include a cash-settled option in an apparent bid to further increase the platform's popularity among investors. The Intercontinental Exchange, Backed parent company, later confirmed the launch of the option for December 9th. Backed's management could also soon start influencing United States cryptocurrency regulation. As Cointelegraph reported on December 1st, Georgia Governor Brian Kemp is expected to appoint Backed Chief Executive Officer Kelly Loeffler for United States Senate seat. But there's a lot more to this. This article that I'm about to go into here comes from, November 25th, but I've been holding on to it for a while because I think it's important to note. It's outdated, but it says a lot about what we're actually going to be expecting in the near future, as it says, no capitulation. Bitcoin miners completely unfazed by crypto collapse. And as this article says, Bitcoin is not seeing capitulation among miners despite the price dipping over 15% in the past week, new data suggests. As it continues, according to estimates of Bitcoin's hash rate from monitoring resource CoinDance, participation remains as strong now as before the price drop. Hash rate refers to the amount of computing power dedicated to maintaining the Bitcoin network. And then it says, according to some measures, the hash rate on November 23rd, in fact, nearly matched its previous all-time high, 134 quintillion hashes per second. Saturday's reading was almost identical to that from October 10th, CoinDance statistics suggest. Bitcoin USD traded at around $7,200 on that day compared to $8,600 in October, and you can see the chart there. Previously, Cointelegraph reported on the rising consensus that Bitcoin miners were exiting their positions as losses mounted. According to statistician Willie Wu, that's a great name, Willy woo. That process had already almost completed as of this week. Taking an opposing position based on the fresh data, entrepreneur Alistair Milne suggested miners were in fact little concerned with current price action. There is no miner capitulation, he summarized in a tweet on Sunday. He continued, they are acutely aware of the upcoming halving and apparently unfazed by the recent dip. And absolutely, that's the core of the issue here. Difficulty reverses upwards, as it says. Milne is also linked to the rising difficulty in mining Bitcoin, an indicator which until recently had been in decline. The difficulty is a measure of the effort required to solve Bitcoin block equation and regularly adjusts to suit current miner sentiment. Earlier this month, difficulty saw its biggest drop of the year, falling 7%. Since then, a roughly 2% uptick likewise contradicts the idea that miners are staying away, according to blockchain figures. And you can see another chart there. Bitcoin, source from Bitcoin mining difficulty. For analyst, Plan B creator of the highly popular stock-to-flow Bitcoin price model, difficulty trends also point to continued faith in mining profitability. Plus 2% difficulty adjustment, no minor capitulation, he wrote on Friday, adding the historical precedent called for a price rise after such behavior. According to Crypto, this real-time difficulty generator, the next adjustment on December 5th could be almost 5% higher than current levels. Unlike difficulty, the hash rate is difficult to estimate beyond a limited degree of accuracy and should not be taken as a definitive guide to miner involvement. Finally, this long-term perspective may be worth paying attention to, and you can see the tweet there, Plan B, some people panicking about this minus 17% week. It's just normal Bitcoin behavior. Note we are still up 2 times year to date. And yes, S2F model is just fine. Nothing out of the ordinary. But I do want to note that something that this article hit on that I think is important is the upcoming halving. As we've seen historically, the halving has led to good times, to say the least. And honestly, I have confidence in the widespread adoption overall. If it's not even Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies, hopefully decentralized ones, are going to catch on. They're going to happen one way or another, whether it's the government enforcing their centrally planned cashless societies, or whether it's us on the free market building great alternatives and great computing entities that allow us to trade freely and hopefully privately and decentralized. I think that's incredibly important, and I think we will see that. We need to focus on the free market, though, and stop these people that are anti digital currency are freaking out, and they're going, oh no, we can't allow this, this is wrong, I'm going to boycott. You're boycotting the ones that are going up against those entities that are trying to develop the cashless systems that we see in China and India and elsewhere, in Australia and Sweden and Japan. Folks, it's important that we master this plan to overthrow the centralized forces that print vast amounts of currency out of thin air using fractional reserve lending, using usury under social contract and legal tender laws to enslave us. If your money's in the bank, it's not yours, it's the bank's. If your money is always going through the banks via digital transactions and legal tender laws and usury, social contract usury that is, it's never your money, it's always a bank's, and you are enslaved to the banking system. So with all of these problems with cryptocurrency, we also have to look at who is manipulating that market. Remember when China said that they had some kind of respect and they were looking at cryptocurrency, Bitcoin and stuff like that? The market skyrocketed. The market skyrocketed 42% in one day. 42%. And obviously, as per usual, everyone bought it up at the top. That's the way people act these days. This is a hedge against a crisis, as was meant to be in the first place. But people don't look at it that way. They're trying to make money fast, and then they end up losing money because of it. And especially with all these altcoins, it's ridiculous. Which I like a lot of the altcoins, but there's a lot of terrible ones. Like 95% are bad. But then China then started another crackdown into cryptocurrencies that's heavily affecting the price right now. And I want to quickly bring an article up that I forgot to load up earlier, which I think is important to this report. I'm pulling up 2 articles actually, and I'm going to go into them to the best of my ability right here off the cuff. But essentially, China has been cracking down on Bitcoin, despite saying that Bitcoin was good. Similarly, like they have in the past. They pump it and then they dump it. They buy up cheap and then sell off at the top, and that's where we're seeing vast amounts of money pouring out of the market. It's obviously manipulation like we see in gold and silver for years, with Deutsche Bank spoofing markets, etc., along many other banks, of course, JP Morgan, BNP Paribas, etc. They actually went to court over that and got fined a massive amount of money. But we also saw that in India, when I believe it was like the Minister of Foreign Affairs or something like that. It had nothing to do with finance necessarily. I mean, war is a racket, but anyway, about 2 years ago mentioned that they were thinking of banning Bitcoin, and the price dropped like a rock. And then the finance minister said, no, we're not planning that. And it skyrocketed. It was pretty obvious that they sold off high, they bought low, and then they sold off high again, just making a bunch of money off of it. And China has been known to do similar things. And in fact, in their first crackdown effort, people started buying cryptocurrency at a greater rate, which is interesting because that's the same thing that happens in the United States when they try to crack down on guns. People buy more guns. Let's get to this article quickly here. I'm not going to go into much of it, but I just wanted to note China's official virtual currency could be arriving quite soon to challenge the U.S. And China obviously is creating a technocratic police state, nanny state grid with Sesame credit and with artificial intelligence, and with police with goggles that have facial recognition on it, showing the credit scores. People criticize the government online, and they end up going to, they get... Have you seen, actually, I need to bring this up, and I'll go into that more in a moment, but people criticize the government, and what happens next is they end up in a chair in some Chinese prison, and I posted it the other day on Twitter, and I'm going to bring it up for you guys right now. This is what happens when you interrogate or when you say something mean about the police online. You're put in a chair, restrained, and forced to apologize. They're essentially tortured. This is what we're seeing. Imagine what we're not seeing. It's sick, and these people are influencing the world, and they're taking over the world. They're set to take over for the U.S. in the coming years. Same with India, and they're creating the cashless society. India testing it with taking away a lot of the gold, demonetizing a lot of their currency, and enforcing cashless on a populace that loves gold and cash. Which isn't working too well. But in China, you criticize the government, your social credit score goes down. You can't eat at restaurants. If you go on a plane, they have a high-pitched beep that goes in your ear, drives you crazy, makes you have a headache, makes you feel sick. They are torturing people, imprisoning people, censoring things. This is the most populous country in the world. Are we not just a little bit concerned, especially since this has been going on for a long time? I mean, going back to Henry Kissinger meeting with Mao Zedong and creating... an alliance with China against Nixon's wishes, going into Zbigniew Brzezinski meeting in China and creating the Trilateral Commission in the late 70s under Carter, leading to this huge trade move over to China. And it's all by, script, folks. They raise wages, they push taxes on small business. They do all this stuff that forces people to go overseas for a cheaper price, because that's what a business has to do to survive and pay its employees. And now they're unrolling the smart city grids in Australia. They're demonetizing there. They're demonetizing in places like Japan, where they went into negative interest rates. Negative interest rates are about to be seen worldwide. It's terrifying, and they want to create this huge control grid where everyone is controlled by the government, everyone's in fear, and everyone's just a complete slave, because debt creates dependency. And if you create a nation of debt slaves, you create a nation that's super subservient and in fear. If you shove someone down a bottomless pit of debt, you're forced to ask for a ladder up from the government and the banking system, pushing you into perfect servitude to them, right where they want you. So this is why I say that we need to break free from that complex and compete on the market and create ways now, sooner than later, to create an environment where we can trade freely, privately, and not be extorted completely, not be arrested, not be tracked everywhere. And Bitcoin is traceable, so that means stepping it up from there into the privacy-oriented aspects of cryptocurrency, decentralized, of course, and building infrastructure against this cashless society, because the future is digital, one way or another. The future is digital. It's how we utilize the digital technology to our benefit, and not to the government's benefit. It's extremely, excruciatingly important to avoid the slavery of mankind. And we don't want to be in a Logan's Run type society. We need to look at value as subjective, based on scarcity, application use, and demand. Scarcity being not a lot of it, demand being that people want it, and utilization, the use case for these things. And for example, with gold and electronics and in jewelry and piling gold in a closet or in the ground or in a safe or wherever it might be. With cryptocurrency, it's utilizing it for international transactions that you can't exactly do easily with gold, and being able to get around the grid, technically speaking, get around these Chinese style censorship grids, and create infrastructures that can get around things like YouTube and Facebook and Twitter and Twitch and Tumblr and Reddit and Patreon, like float.app is doing, flote.app. We need to develop this, we need to innovate, and with innovation comes prosperity, not bending over backwards for the state to use us as pawns to sacrifice for the king and the queen. That's why I go into the tyranny so much, because again, if your money's in the bank, it's not yours, it's a bank's. We can't allow these people to be able to track us everywhere, track every transaction, not allow us to eat places, not allow us to leave the country, for example. At the same time, facial recognition everywhere compared with social credit scores, which Facebook, I believe, is developing in their own right. I believe that Facebook went to China developing AI in order to create a sovereign national Facebook digital entity that's based on artificial technology, creating social credit scores, et cetera, as well. And that's definitely coming up down the line as well. We need to break free from the slave racket that we've all been forced to accept so willingly and stupidly. Tyranny comes under the guise of convenience, so we need to create convenient alternatives that the vast majority won't necessarily ideologically understand, but will adopt because it's convenient and it's an easy thing to do, because generally speaking, people are lazy. So we need to create those alternatives before we end up with bank runs, for example, or bail-ins that we can't do anything about. We can't do a bank run. The bail-in regimes come in, they take money out of our bank account. They only promise us 3% at the most back in overall amount of money they stole from us. They could tax us to death straight out of our bank accounts, all that kind of stuff. And it's extraordinarily dangerous for the future of mankind. So we need to keep that in mind. We need to break free and live free, or forever hold our peace and die by the sword of the state. Anyway, I appreciate everyone tuning in today. And until next time, this is Josh Sigurdson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth. Be the change. Like what you see here at Wham, don't forget to check the links below. GoFundMe, Patreon. We cannot do it without you guys. Every donation is extremely, extremely appreciated, as we're getting incredibly shadow banned. We've lost 80% of our audience since January of 2019 and counting. They are ripping us apart here on YouTube, and the only thing we could do in the meantime as we prepare for the next big step is to ask for help from the viewers that support our free information that we try to post on a daily basis. You can also find us on Subscribestar, where just $1 a month, that's all it takes, $1 a month is all it takes to truly make a huge difference. If everyone gave $1 a month, it would change everything for independent media, and we could win this information war, and we can defeat the mainstream medias eventually. And of course, on Subscribestar, we post subscriber-only content that you'll only see on Subscribestar. So make sure to pledge there, become a patron. That makes a huge difference, guys. And also, don't forget to check out our Bitcoin address below in the comments and description, as well as on the screen for you to scan, if you please. And also, don't forget to subscribe to us on the alternatives. We will likely be deleted by YouTube in the next 2 years. It's already happening on a vast scale, so make sure to find us on float.app. That's flote.app. At Josh Sigurdson, as well as at Wham, W-A-M. Float.app is replacing every social media, and I mean, it's just incredible the opportunities it provides for not just creators, but for the average person who wants to get away from these nannies telling them what they can or cannot see. They plan to replace Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Twitch, Tumblr, Reddit, and Patreon. You could subscribe to us on Float and pledge with cryptocurrency. It's really innovative. We are also on BitChute at World Alternative Media, as well as so many others: Minds, PocketNet. You can find us at World Alternative Media on Instagram. There's many options. And finally, don't forget to join us at Anarchapulco 2020, the famous event, the best liberty event known to mankind other than perhaps Anarcho Vegas 2020. There are 2 major events coming up that we are extremely excited about, and you can use promo code WHAM, that's W-A-M, and save 10% on your tickets to these legendary conferences. There's so many amazing people speaking there. You won't want to miss it. So make sure to support in any way you can, even if it's just sharing our videos, pressing like, pressing to be notified. Anything helps, folks. You are the change you wish to see. Thanks for watching, everyone. And until next time, this is Josh Sigurdson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change.
I'm sure you have already changed people's minds in your young age because you're involved, and I like that.